Hello there, peoples of the internet. It seems once again the timer isn't giving me a readout of how long I've got left, but thankfully I noticed that the recording had stopped. Oh, I should turn this off. There we go. The recording had stopped not too long after I noticed, before I noticed. So I had a very pleasant, very restful afternoon. Played a few rounds of a board game that I enjoy, and I'm just going to proceed from where I left off. I guess I really am going to be stuck doing approximately one chapter per weekend. Now that's fair. All right, then. Basil Hallward has been asked to describe how Dorian Gray feels about them. As a rule, he is charming to me, and we sit in the studio and talk of 1,000 things. Now and then, however, he is horribly thoughtless and seems to take a real delight in giving me pain. Then I feel, Harry, that I have given away my whole soul to someone who treats it as if it were a flower to put in his coat, a bit of decoration to charm his vanity, an ornament for a summer's day. I don't know. Once you start thinking about Berserk, it keeps coming up. Someone who's like ephemerally beautiful and rapturing in a almost supernatural way, who's at the same time very playful and perhaps doesn't take the weight of your commitment to him too seriously. For those of you who've read Berserk, of course. Days in summer, Basil, are apt to linger, murmured Lord Henry. Perhaps you will tire sooner than he will. It is a sad thing to think of, but there is no doubt that genius lasts longer than beauty. That accounts for the fact that we all take such pains to over-educate ourselves. In the wild struggle for existence, we want to have something that endures, so that we fill our minds with rubbish and facts in the silly hope of keeping our place. The thoroughly well-informed man, that is the modern ideal. And the mind of the thoroughly well-informed man is a dreadful thing. It's like a bric-a-brac shop, all monsters and dust, with everything priced above its proper value. I suppose this is something that I continue to struggle with still. I did a year ago. I was only merely becoming aware of the problem, and it grows and wanes from time to time. I guess a big part of it is it's not a bad thing to derive pleasure from the acquiring of knowledge. It's when it becomes an unhealthy need and when you panic when you're unable to acquire more knowledge. It's a form of greed. I mean, same thing with adhering to justice and a moral code and all the rest. I mean, it's not a bad thing to have a personality with idiosyncrasies. It's about having that personality balanced and tempered in like the whole well of godliness. I forget if I had this same pendant at the time or my last pendant. It's the Enneagram, and I will not be getting into that here. Someday you will look at your friend. All right, I think you will tire first of him, all the same. Someday you will look at your friend, and he will seem to you to be a little out of drawing, or you won't like his tone of color or something. You will bitterly reproach him in your own heart, and seriously think that he has behaved very badly to you. The next time he calls, you will be perfectly cool and indifferent. It will be a great pity, for it will alter you. What you have told me is quite a romance, and a romance of art, one might call it. And the worst of having romance of any kind is that it leaves one so unromantic. And if I had to interpret this, I'd say that The fact of the matter is, this person is the person that's for me. This is the thing that I must pursue. It's almost like a type of seriousness, as opposed to like the sense of adventure and fun and whimsy that can also be associated with romance, like the whole idea of romance dawn in One Piece. Harry, don't talk like that. As long as I live, the personality of Dorian Gray will dominate me. You can't feel what I feel. You change too often. Ah, my dear Basil. As much as I feel like it's been Henry a couple of times, it must be my problem. It's Harry going forward. I can't decide whether it should be Basil or Basil. All right. Ah, my dear Basil, that is exactly why I can feel it. Those who are faithful only know the trivial side of love. It is the faithless who know love's tragedies. And Lord Henry stuck a light on the dainty silver case and began to smoke a cigarette with a self-conscious and satisfied air, as if he had summed up the world in a phrase. There was a rustle of chirruping sparrows in the green lacquer leaves of the ivy, and the blue cloud shadows chased themselves across the grass like swallows. How pleasant it was in the garden, and how delightful other people's emotions were. Much more delightful than their ideas, it seemed to him. One's own soul and the passions of one's friends. Those were the fascinating things in life. He pictured to himself with silent amusement the tedious luncheon that he had missed by staying so long with Basil Hallward. Had he gone to his aunt's, he would have been sure to have met Lord Goodbody there, and the whole conversation would have been about the feeding of the poor and the necessity for model housing lodges. Each class would have preached the importance of those virtues, for whose exercise there was no necessity in their own lives. The rich would have spoken on the value of thrift, and the idle grown eloquent over the dignity of labor. It was charming to have escaped all that. As he thought of his aunt, an idea seemed to strike him. He turned toward Hallward and said, "My dear fellow, I've just remembered." "Pardon me." "Remembered what, Harry?" "Where I heard the name Dorian Gray." "Where was it?" asked Hallward with a slight frown. "Don't look so angry, Basil. It was my aunt, Lady Agatha's. She told me that she had discovered a wonderful young man who was going to help her in East End, and that his name was Dorian Gray. I am bound to state that she never told me he was good-looking. Women have no appreciation of good looks. At least, good women have not. She said that he was very earnest and had a beautiful nature. I at once pictured to myself a creature with spectacles and lank hair, horribly freckled, and tramping about on huge feet. I wish I had known it was your friend." "I'm very glad you didn't, Harry." Also, at least from my more informed perspective, it is very clear to me that this was written by a queer individual. At one point, it will no longer dominate you, and this whole thing of, oh, women know nothing about good looks. Or care nothing for them. Yeah. And also just this artistic appreciation for the male form, which goes beyond my attraction to men, I'll tell you. No offense, fellas. "I don't want you to meet him," in response to Lord Harry wondering why it is that that Basil is glad that he didn't meet him. "You don't want me to meet him?" Oh, I should have just kept reading. "No." "Mr. Dorian Gray is in the studio, sir," said the butler, coming into the garden. "You must introduce me now," cried Lord Henry, laughing. The painter turned to his servant, who stood blinking in the sunlight. "Ask Mr. Gray to wait, Parker. I shall be in a few moments." The man bowed and went up the walk. Excuse me. Then he looked at Henry. Dorian Gray is my dearest friend, he said. He has a simple and beautiful nature. Your aunt was quite right in what she said of him. Don't spoil him. Don't try to influence him. Your influence would be bad. The world is wide and has many marvelous people in it. Don't take away from me, the one person who gives my art whatever charm it possesses. My life as an artist depends on him. Mind, Harry, I trust you. He spoke very slowly, and the words seemed wrung out of him, almost against his will. What nonsense you talk, said Lord Henry. I'm not insane. It does switch from Harry to Henry. Smiling and taking Hallward by the arm, he almost led him into the house. That is the end of chapter 1, and we're 10 minutes in. And that's also where I stopped reading previously. Now this is going to be new to me. Chapter 2. As they entered, they saw Dorian Gray. He was seated at the piano, with his back to them, turning over the pages of a volume of Schumann's Forest Scenes. I'm looking this up immediately. Schumann's Forest Scenes. Oh, it seems to be music. And I cannot read sheet music. A score excerpt from... Oh, that's misleading. Never heard the name Schumann before. There's some really nice cover artwork on one of the CDs I see here. And he did exist at a time when there was photography. Either that or that's very skillful sketch art. Let's see if I can remember any of the... I can recognize any of the names of the songs. Open link in new tab. Fantasy in C. Ooh. Waldzennen, spelled with a W. I do not know what Zennen is or a Wald. Piano Sonata number 2. Focaccia. No, just Faccia. And Ian Holton. Although I'm guessing that in this case, on the Apple Music advertisement for Google Images, Ian Holton might just be the pianist performing Schumann's compositions. I will listen to them later. You must lend me... Oh, I've got to think of a voice for Dorian Gray. I recently recorded a story. It was The Tale of Beren and Luthien for my darling. You know, love story. And I gave one of my favorite characters, Finrod Felagund, the cave hewer, the weirdest voice, and I regret it a lot because he's one of my favorite characters, you know? Because I had already given Lord Eru Thingol, the High King of Beleriand, which is like basically the heart and soul of Middle-earth at the time, I gave him this kind of echoey magic voice. I'm not doing it right here. It's fine. All right. Dorian Gray. He is a youthful gentleman. He is charming. I should try my best to do an impression of Griffith from the English. You will be mine. Yes, this will be. Kind of like echoey, but not too high or too low. Very much so a piercing, straight kind of sound. Yeah, I think that this has kind of an essence of Griffith's voice acting in the 1997 Berserk performance. You must lend me these, Basil, he cried. I want to learn them. They are perfectly charming. That entirely depends on how you sit today, Dorian. Oh, I am tired of sitting, and I don't want a life-sized portrait of myself, answered the lad, swinging round on the stool in a wilful, petulant manner. When he caught sight of Lord Henry, a faint blush colored his cheeks for a moment, and he started up. I beg your pardon, Basil. I didn't know you had anyone with you. This is Lord Henry Wotton, Dorian, an old Oxford friend of mine. I've just been telling him what a capital sitter you were, and now you've spoiled everything. You have not spoiled my pleasure in meeting you, Mr. Grey, said Lord Henry, stepping forward and extending his hand. My aunt has spoken to me about you. You're one of her favorites, and, I am afraid, one of her victims also. I am in Lady Agatha's black books at present, answered Dorian with a funny look of penitence. I promised to go to a club in Whitechapel with her last Tuesday, and I really forgot all about it. The voice is becoming more childish. We were to have played a duet together, 3 duets, I believe. I don't know what she will say to me. I'm far too frightened to call. Oh, I will make your peace with my aunt. She is quite devoted to you. And I don't think it really matters about your not being there. The audience probably thought it was a duet. When Aunt Agatha sits down to the piano, she makes quite enough noise for 2 people. That is very horrid to her, and not very nice to me, answered Dorian, laughing. Lord Henry looked at him. Yes, he was certainly wonderfully handsome, with his finely curved scarlet lips, his frank blue eyes, his crisp gold hair. There was something in his face that made one trust him at once, and the candor of youth was there, as well as all youth's passionate purity. One felt that he had kept himself unspotted from the world. No wonder Basil Hallward worshipped him. You are too charming to go in for philanthropy, Mr. Grey. Far too charming. And Lord Henry flung himself down on the divan and opened his cigarette case. The painter had been busy mixing his colors and getting his brushes ready. He was looking worried, and when he heard Lord Henry's last remark, he glanced at him, hesitated for a moment, and said, Harry, I want to finish this picture today. Do you think it would be awfully rude of me if I asked you to go away? Lord Henry smiled and looked at Dorian Gray. Am I to go, Mr. Gray? He asked. Oh, please don't, Lord Henry. I see that Basil is in one of his sulky moods, and I can't bear him when he sulks. Besides, I want you to tell me why I should not go in for philanthropy. This is going exactly the way that Basil didn't want it to go. All right, let's try to do a prediction here. Go in for philanthropy. As in, to benefit from it? All right, what's the last thing? He's too charming to go in for philanthropy. I guess that his charm comes from acting and thinking independently, and that receiving patronage could perhaps, alter his allegiances and his charm as well. I don't know that I shall tell you that, Mr. Gray. It is so tedious a subject that one would have to talk seriously about it. But I certainly shall not want to run away now that you've asked me to stop. You really don't mind, Basil, do you? You have often told me that you liked your sitters to have someone to chat to. Hallward bit his lip. If Dorian wishes it, of course you must stay. Dorian's whims are laws to everybody, except himself. Oh no, Basil. Ooh, ha. Lord Henry knows exactly what he's doing. I'm going to call him Harry, though. I think that he might prefer to be called Harry. But then again, he seems like the type of guy who wouldn't want to associate with someone who cares too much about what he thinks, if you know what I mean. Well, what I think is respecting what somebody calls themselves and their autonomy in that way. And so I'm doing the right thing because it's what I want to do. It's not about your feelings. Which, of course, can get me in trouble with people who don't like justice or mercy being enacted. And a lot of the time it can be unintuitive. at what point you call somebody an enemy, and then if you refuse to call them an enemy, then does that make you an enemy of the person who does call them an enemy? I say nay. Like, if you say, I choose to stand by your side even if I'm not going to stand against them, and then a nice response would be, well, my side is against them. And then I'd say, then I would leave your side then, but I wouldn't be joining them at that point. Like, I should say, yeah, I guess that's the whole thing. And I have to honestly say that I don't take anybody's side except for my own. So, there it is. And I think that that is certainly something that Harry would appreciate. Lord Henry. You know what I'm trying to say. Lord Henry looked up his hat and gloves. You are very pressing, Basil, but I'm afraid I must go. I have promised to meet a man at the Orleans? I don't know. How would somebody in this area say that? This is something pressing that I need to look up immediately. Was Oscar Wilde Scottish or Irish? No offense to both of those Celtic people. He was an Irish author. Good, that's what I've been saying. And I do not know how Irish folk would pronounce Orleans. Orleans is how they say it in New Orleans. So I'll go with that as an American person who has had many fond memories made down by the bayou. So, Orleans. Also, just because these are lords that we're talking about, and lords in Ireland would often be around British folk, English folk. So I don't think I'm in too much trouble. Goodbye, Mr. Gray. Come and see me some afternoon in Curzon Street. Oh no, now I'm doing more French pronunciation. I'm nearly always at home at 5 o'clock. Write to me when you're coming. I should be sorry to miss you. Basil! Basil! Cried Dorian Gray. If Lord Henry Wotton goes, I shall go too. You never open your lips while you are painting, and it is horribly dull standing on a platform and trying to look pleasant. Ask him to stay. I insist upon it. Stay, Harry. Stay, Harry, to oblige Dorian and to oblige me, said Hallward, gazing intently at his picture. It is quite true, I never talk when I'm working, and never listen either. It must be dreadfully tedious for my unfortunate sitters. I beg you to stay. To this, I've got to throw in here that, is the sitter not being paid? And there can be conversation after the drawing. But what about my man at the Orleans? The painter laughed. I don't think that there will be any difficulty about that. Sit down again, Harry. And now, Dorian, get up on the platform, don't move about too much, or pay any attention to what Lord Henry says. He has a very bad influence over all his friends, with the single exception of myself. Dorian Gray stepped up on the dais with the air of a young Greek martyr, and made a little mot, that's a French word that I'm not familiar with, of discontent to Lord Henry, to whom he had rather taken a fancy. He was so unlike Basil, they made a delightful contrast, and he had such a beautiful voice. After a few moments he said to him, Have you really a very bad influence, Lord Henry? As bad as Basil says? There's no such thing as a good influence, Mr. Gray. All influence is immoral from the scientific point of view. Why? Because to influence a person is to give him one's own soul. He does not think his natural thoughts, or burn with his natural passions. His virtues are not real to him. His sins, if there are such things as sins, are borrowed. He becomes an echo of someone else's music, an actor of a part that has not been written for him. The aim of life is self-development, to realize one's nature perfectly. That is what each of us is here for. I don't agree with that latter part about the aim of a person's nature being to become the fullest version of themselves. But I'd say that the only way for you to become the fullest version of yourself is to borrow a Greek term, balance your humors, and in that way become like closer to the divine with God. And of course, a big part of that is living as who you are, but then like what are the parts of you that you take and you choose, and how much balance? Like we have to find how much of an individual and how much of God we want to be at any given time. And I feel like the only way through to the end of that, I mean, aside from having a very strict moral code, is a carefully developed intuition. And as far as like attuning to God and careful practicing of meditation and various personal codes of action that aren't directly tied to ethics, like, the Ten Commandments and various Levitical laws for some, or I guess also my apologies to those Judaic folk out there, but rabbinical laws. I know that there are two schools of thought, but that's more outside of my wheelhouse. What's more in my wheelhouse is the Eightfold Path and the various rules for lay people and or monks. There's no reason why lay people can't also attempt to undertake more of the restrictions placed upon monks for the sake of self-purification. But also meditation, it's hugely important for everybody. Like really good, intense Christian prayer sessions, and I guess any prayer session, is in a lot of ways a meditation, especially if you're really opening yourself up to your environment. Like the whole idea of reaching for a voice, I think can be useful. I guess there's just like the whole pleading aspect of it. I guess I should make a whole separate video about like ways to pray and what that means. A lot of the time I still think of myself as an atheist, but I think that it would, in a lot of ways, be dishonest to call myself one at this point. Because I am and am not a theist. I'm a non-dualist. I don't know what to say. I'm a non-dualist. But like the value and use of faith was an old video that I made, and I stand by that in a lot of ways. I feel like I would have been able to present it better now in my old age. But I don't want to say the virtue of prayer. I'm just going to do prayer video. Prayer video. Boop. I would love it if all of the atheist YouTubers that I followed when I was younger, and still do sometimes when I'm trying to sleep, made fun of me, called me foolish, and pointed out flaws in my arguments, of course. All right. Right, so that's the latter part. The former part, all of our souls are intermingling, and I don't think that you have to be a certain version of yourself to be your true self. All of the versions of yourself are authentic. I mentioned that in one of my, I think the latter of my, the philosophy of clothing videos, which I suppose is a part of my aesthetics that I didn't commit to my aesthetic view of like definition of art. I'm going to add that later. clothing, just to write it down with the rest of my philosophy. Clothing, philosophy, add it. Like, I'm primarily writing a document it's a constitution, it's a political philosophy, but politics, at the end of history, after, like, when people are being taken care of, a big part of that is artistic expression and becoming the most individuated version of the person that we are. So, having a clear definition of art and artistic expression, and so that people can have that in mind when they are planning community artistic events or whatnot. It's valuable. And also, I just like the idea of all of my most important philosophies being in one place. Even if the framing device is my axiology and the aesthetics is just like a portion of my axiology. Political philosophy, I think, very much so, is also a part of axiology. I mean, yeah, it's just my axiology formulated into a legal document. And I feel like a lot of very well-made ethical philosophies, they kind of function as a legal system already, except a lot of them don't go specifically into redressing of grievances and specifically about how to allocate power. In my experience, I do think that Nietzsche went into that in a lot more detail. All right. People are afraid of to realize one's nature perfectly. That is what is for each of us here. That is what each of us is here for. People are afraid of themselves nowadays. They have forgotten the highest of all duties, the duty that one owes to oneself. Of course they are charitable. They feed the hungry and clothe the beggar. But their own souls starve and are naked. Courage has gone out of our race. Perhaps we never really had it. The terror of society, which is the basis of morals, the terror of God, which is the secret of religion. These two things that govern us, and yet... Just turn your head a little bit more to the right, Dorian, like a good boy. Oh God, this book is so queer. That's more than just posh Englishness. That is definitely, or posh Irishness. That is definitely a queer man writing a book. Said the painter, deep in his work, and conscious only that a look had come into the lad's face that he had never seen there before. Oh. And yet, continued Lord Henry in his low musical voice, and with that graceful wave of the hand that was always so characteristic of him, that he even had in his Eton days, Eton, I believe, is a part of Oxford, I believe that if one man were to live out his life fully and completely, were to give to form every feeling, expression to every thought, reality to every dream, I believe that the world would gain such a fresh impulse of joy that we would forget all the maladies of medievalism and return to the Hellenistic ideal, to something finer, richer than the Hellenistic ideal, it may be, but the bravest man amongst us is afraid of himself. The mutilation of the savage has its tragic survival in the self-denial that mars our lives. Oh my gosh, this man is a Nietzschean. Speak of the devil and he shall appear. For those of you familiar with Nietzsche, I'm not going to explain my understanding of Nietzschean philosophy to you. We are punished for our refusals. Every impulse that we strive to strangle broods in the mind and poisons us. The body sins once and has done with its sin, for action is a mode of purification. Nothing remains then but the recollection of a pleasure or the luxury of a regret. The only way to get rid of a temptation is to yield to it. Resist it, and your soul grows sick with longing for the things that it has forbidden to itself. I'll get to that. with the desire for what its monstrous laws have made monstrous and unlawful. It has been said that the great events of the world take place in the brain. It is in the brain, and the brain only, that the great sins of the world take place. You, Mr. Gray, you yourself, with your rose-red youth and your rose-white boyhood, have had passions that have made you afraid, thoughts that have filled you with terror, daydreams and sleeping dreams whose mere memory might stain your cheek with shame. Stop! Faltered Dorian Gray. Stop! You bewilder me. I don't know what to say. There is some answer to you, but I cannot find it. Don't speak. Let me think, or rather, let me try not to think. And while he is responding to this, I shall do the same. I think that this was written before Nietzsche, so that's very fascinating to me. I've got to check. When was this published? I could scroll up, but I don't want to lose my place on the book again. When was Picture of Dorian Gray published? 1890. I don't know which of Nietzsche's first books was published. Well, let's just go with Nietzsche publications, and then I'll assume that he got his ideas down by the second book. I'm so much better at scatting when I'm not actively trying. Aus meinem Leben, which means from my life. Über Musik, on music, or over music, I think would be a better translation as far as I know. Napoleon III als Präsident. I'm realizing that I'm not speaking this with the proper accent. Fatum and Geschichte. 1862. Fate and History. There we go. So that was published in 1862 versus 1890. And surely by Fate and History, he would have had his idea. But Thus Spoke Zarathustra is his big claim to fame. From My Life and My Life, two autobiographical books wishing him well. Schopenhauer as an Educator, To a Human, The Wanderer in the Shadow, The Dawn. Thus Spoke Zarathustra. I guess it came out in sections. The last one was released in 1885. All right, so it's possible that Oscar Wilde hadn't read Nietzsche at that point, but I highly doubt it. He was a voracious reader. There was no way that he wasn't reading it. I mean, especially since the Gay Science came out just before that. No, I kid. That's not everything, but still. And also, I really like the German name. To be wise is to be wissen, and science, apparently a German, or Deutsch, is Wissenschaft. The science is to be the Wissenschaft. Oh, I love that. And gay and joyful, they call it the Frohlich Wissenschaft. Oh dear, that is so delightful. Anyway, I'm going to write that down. Frohlich Wissenschaft. All right, then. Back to these two, and actually reading through this. All right. We did the first part of that, and just based on what I was saying about, like, honing one's soul and one's spirit, and then using intuition to, like, guide out your truest form of yourself, you can already guess what my argument would be to that part of it. But then the second part would be about the whole idea of pulling yourself forward. I guess I should say the urges. I guess it's first important to understand what is and isn't like a sinful thing to long for one. And then for two, it's not just about suppression. It's about understanding where your longings come from, and about making peace with them. Like, it could be true that one could live with longing for the rest of their life and then not truly get rid of it. It could be that one does, in fact, live with a temptation for their whole life. But the temptation doesn't necessarily need to be painful. One can make peace with their temptations. And rather than the soul growing sick, the soul moves on. Something with the modern day and instant gratification on phones and all of that, and dopamine addiction and sickness and all of the rest. That's us not exercising our muscles of willpower. And it's about, this is very important. The whole idea is, I've decided to not do this thing, and I'm not going to tell myself why I haven't decided to do it and all the rest. It's after you have made a decision to do or to not do a thing, you simply do it. And it takes the effort of willpower is actually not allowing yourself to think. It's not about, it's not about thought suppression. How do I describe it? I guess there is an artfulness of just simply allowing a thought to pass by without paying attention to it. That's the willpower. You still have the thoughts, you still have the temptations, but you're not actively suppressing them. It's like you ignore them. Yeah? It's not, no, I'm not going to think about the pink elephant. It's that the ability to say, pink elephant, without visualizing it, or pink elephant. Maybe even not allowing yourself to recognize what the words mean. That's what being more exercised and being more present in where you are can do. And that is a skill that it helps to practice. Especially it depends on how strong the temptation is. I'm not too strongly tempted to think of pink elephants. And then there's the whole idea that allowing your mind to flit and flutter and seeing where it flits and flutters to can be very useful, especially when you're able to turn that into speech. It's playful, but you need to also be able to let it play by itself. Yeah? Like letting a TV run in the background and you don't really pay attention to what it's saying, or radio, or how a bird song, to use a more timeless example, a bird song kind of becomes the ambience and you don't really pay attention to a particular bird's song. So in that case, it's not about resisting it. It's about learning to grow with it and making peace with it. That I'm very hungry, but it's okay. And the ideas of Stoicism far precede this. The ideas of cynicism far precede this. In a lot of ways, Nietzsche is a rejection of those ideas, and I disagree. I think that what Nietzsche was afraid of in his society was, aside from Jewishness and women, this is a way to say it. There are ways of interpreting Nietzsche's work where his fears are very valid and worth paying attention to, but I don't think that his particular prescription for how to deal with his worries about the way that society is going is correct. All right, then. what he's saying about the great sins of the world only take place in the brain, yeah, it's knowing that urges themselves are not a thing to be ashamed of. It's like committing to those urges. It's not bad to see a beautiful lady walking down the street and, oh my goodness, those are amazingly tantalizing bazongadongs. It's going up to that lady and saying, hey, you have fantastically amazing bazongadongs. I mean, maybe if you're friends with them for a while and you know each other well and you just throw out there, by the way, you probably guessed, but I'm a big fan of your bazongadongs. You've really been blessed in that department. It's a whole nother thing. There's that old tale of monks that aren't supposed to come in contact with a woman without special circumstances and all of that. But a pair of monks help carry a woman, they ford a river together, and they're holding each other to get across the river. And the younger of the two monks, he's quite upset. How could we have done something like this? Oh my goodness! Aren't you going to get in trouble? And the older, more experienced, and at least in this class, the more wizen of the two monks responds, all right, it's true, we carried that woman across the river, but when I made it to the other side, I let her go. Ba-ba-bum. All right. For nearly 10 minutes, did I spend 10 minutes discussing this in total? More or less? But I went through the process of explaining it, and my words are far slower to transmit than my thoughts. But also, I'm trying to make them comprehensible to an extent to a person who is not me. So I don't know. We'll see. No. I was scrolling down with the down key on the 4 direction keys, but I accidentally hit the end button and it scrolled all the way to the bottom of the page. Bottom of the book, because where I'm at, this is all one scrolling page as opposed to... So I've completely lost my place. Okay. Oh, I think I just said it. Saw it. There. No, that's chapter 3. Boo, 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 boo. Oh my god, there's something about murder coming up, apparently. Somebody's objecting strongly to murder, perhaps. Another quarter of an hour happens. Oh wow, that is a big paragraph. Somebody's going to be giving a serious speech. Sorry. I hate losing my page. But, I mean, we're 50 minutes in and I don't think... turn your head a little more to the right like a good boy. For nearly 10 minutes he stood there motionless, with his lips parted, with parted lips and eyes strangely bright. He was dimly conscious that entirely fresh influences were at work within him, yet they seemed to him to have really come really from himself. The few words that Basil's friend said to him, words spoken by chance, no doubt, and with willful paradox in them, had touched some secret chord that had never been touched before, but that he felt was now vibrating and throbbing to curious pulses. Okay, I think that one's on me, but I've just got queerness on the brain. That's... alright. Music had stirred him like that. Music had troubled him many times, but music was not articulate. It was a new world, but rather another chaos that it created in us. Words, mere words, how terrible they were, how clear and vivid and cruel. One could not escape from them, and yet What subtle magic there was in them. They seemed to be able to give a plastic form to formless things, and to have a music of their own, as sweet as that of a viol or lute. Mere words! Was there anything so real as words? Hyper-real, one might say. That was something I added. Yes, there had been things in his boyhood that he had not understood. He understood them now. Life suddenly became fiery colored to him. It seemed to him that he had been walking in fire. Why had he not known it? With his subtle smile, Lord Henry watched him. He knew the precise psychological moment when to say nothing. He felt intensely interested. He was amazed at the sudden impression that his words had produced. Remembering a book that he had read when he was 16, a book which had revealed to him much that he had not known before, he wondered whether or not Dorian Gray was passing through a similar experience. He had merely shot an arrow into the air. Had it hit the mark? How fascinating the lad was! Hallward painted away with that marvelous, bold touch of his, and that had the true refinement and the perfect delicacy that, in art, at any rate, comes from only strength. He was unconscious of the silence. "Basil, I'm tired of standing," cried Dorian Gray suddenly. "I must go out and sit in the garden. The air is stifling here." "My dear fellow, I'm so sorry. When I'm painting, I can't think of anything else. But you never sat better. You were perfectly still, and I have caught the effect I wanted. The half-parted lips and the bright look in the eyes. I don't know what Harry has been saying to you, but he has certainly made you have the most wonderful expression. I suppose he's been paying you compliments. You mustn't believe a word that he says." "He has certainly not been paying me compliments. Perhaps that is the reason why I don't believe anything he has told me." "You know you believe it all," said Lord Henry, looking at him with dreamy and languorous eyes. "Oh, dear. I will go out into the garden with you. It is horribly hot in the studio. Basil, let us have something iced to drink, something with strawberries in it." Chances are the video recording is going to end soon. It's already longer than the last one, even though I took a couple of pictures in between here and there. So, we'll see what happens. "Certainly, Harry. Just touch the bell, and when Parker comes, I will tell him what you want. I've got to work up this background, so I will join you later on. Don't keep Dorian too long. I have never been in better form for painting than I am today. This is going to be my masterpiece. It is my masterpiece as it stands." Lord Henry went out into the garden and found Dorian Gray burying his face in the great, cool lilac blossoms, feverishly drinking in their perfume as if it had been wine. He came close to him and put his hand upon his shoulder. "You are quite right to do that," he murmured. "You gotta go out there and smell the flowers, my friends. I mean, assuming you don't live in a very polluted place, and always make sure that there's not a bug in the flower before you stick your nose in it. Nothing can cure the soul but the senses, just as nothing can cure the senses but the soul." The lad started and drew back. He was bare-handed, and the leaves had tossed his rebellious curls and tangled all their gilded threads. There was a look of fear in his eyes, such as people have when they are suddenly awakened. His finely chiseled nostrils quivered, and some hidden nerve shook the scarlet of his lips and left them trembling. "Yes," continued Lord Henry, "that is one of the great secrets of life, to cure the soul by means of the senses, and the senses by the means of the soul. You are a wonderful creation. You know more than you think you know, just as you know less than you want to know." Gotta take a moment to untangle this, excuse me. You, being a human person, know more than you think you know, just as, and no, this is a comparative, you know less than you want to know. So he's just saying that he instinctually knows that there's this curative effect of being around the flowers, and that kind of ties into what I was saying about honing your instinct. And I feel like my form of wizardry that I practiced better in the past, and plan to continue honing myself for in the future is about having a well-toned instinct and being one with the world around you. Like so many of the forms of magic reading that happen with interpreting symbols and all of that, really it is just about reading the signs that are there in front of you and making them fit. And there's kind of, I don't have the words to describe it now, but at least in terms of, I'm just going to stick with tarot because I've read the most official how to practice this properly with tarot, at least when it comes to the I Ching, which I have sitting over yonder, or I Ching, I don't know. I've read it in its entirety, along with the accompanying works of Confucius, although I have a whole nother collected works of Confucius that's... I know a lot more about how to properly do a reading there, about taking it always that the cards are thinking of the present and potential futures, and always taking it from what the person sees and how the whole idea of the tarot is about the person's growth and movements in their own soul and what that leads to and from. And if you take it from that aspect, that there is like a single narrative here that can wiggle and that different people can fill in, but it's always about growth and about finding balance in your environment, I think is a fairly accurate way to put it. That it applies universally in a way that actually works, in a way that can inspire you to think about your present situation in a different way. In the same way, you can read the tarot or interpret the I Ching or I Ching. You can interpret the world around you as it is, like understanding your pulse and the sound of the wind and the bird song and the look in somebody's eye. And I think that also is what, it's not exactly, but it's definitely in a lot of ways related to what it means to be in prayer, to be in touch with one's instincts and to feel the pressure of the world around you. And I will say that this is not, maybe that might be spiritual mumbo-jumbo. What is not spiritual mumbo-jumbo is, in terms of grounding oneself and being present and aware of one's surroundings in a more meditative state, being barefoot more often. Being barefoot, having your toes in the soil, it does something to a person psychologically, which I could probably say if I weren't slightly sleepy and tying together a lot of, not particularly disparate, but definitely separate concepts here. I don't think there are too many very well constructed books of magic. It's something that you really have to acquire through practice at the moment. And I'm not sure if that's a good thing or not. I definitely think that one can use magic, as I'm describing it now, the skills of the wizard. I do think that one could use them to do harm irresponsibly. So, there we go. Maybe it is a good thing that there is no official document. Can't believe that the camera is still going. Dorian Gray frowned and turned his head away. He could not help liking the tall, graceful young man who was standing by him. His romantic, olive-colored face and worn expression interested him. There was something in his low, languid voice that was absolutely fascinating. His cool... Is that a bug that I just killed? No, thank goodness. White, flower-like hands, even, had a curious charm. They moved as he spoke, like music, and seemed to have a language of their own.